The actual reason that Kim Kardashian will never be a good actress actually has nothing to do with a lack of talent or her capability, and everything to do with a fundamental fear of being ugly. I'm not a stan or a hater either way, but as someone with a primary special interest in performing, which is nothing more than professional masking, I find them fascinating from a zoomed out sociological, anthropological standpoint, especially with the advent of reality television. What I find particularly interesting about this new calling that Kim Kardashian apparently has to become an actor is that not only is she not a good actor, because she will never be able to take those emotional risks that are required for that profession, but she's also not good at being natural. A lot of times we can divide actors into two different types of actors, right? The ones that are really good at taking risks and being chameleons, think people like Meryl Streep and stuff like that, and then ones that are just really good at making careers of being natural, but not necessarily embodying anyone other than themselves. Think Blake Lively, and also to a certain extent, think like Jennifer Aniston. The thing is, that's not to say that being able to act authentically naturally on camera and having that certain natural star power doesn't require skill. It doesn't mean that you are good at acting, because in a lot of ways, it's the exact opposite of being a good actor, because it is the ultimate act of pretend. I'm going to get into the controversy over It Ends With Us, but I will say Blake Lively does an interview saying that she's not the type of actor that can't produce, meaning that she can't also have creative control, meaning she can't really do the ultimate surrender of trust and the ultimate act of collaboration, which is putting together any type of production. Really said something along the lines of, you can't just slap different clothes on me and expect me to transform, which is very telling because that is exactly what an actor is asked to do. When you go on to realize that she also insisted as a producer that a lot of the costuming was sourced from her own wardrobe, you were supposed to bring yourself to the role, not make the role you. Of course, Blake Lively has a thing, but that does not make her a good actor. Being natural on camera, which is interesting and brings me to my point back to Kim Kardashian. As Kim Kardashian, like so many other celebrities, but especially Kim Kardashian, doesn't have a baseline of natural. You understand what I'm saying? Even no-name niche vloggers, like myself for a long time, will tell you that the brain definitely does get impacted by the constant need to make everything in your life content. No way to even articulate how much a parasocial relationship will affect the development of both the viewer and the performer, especially the type of performer that Kim K has branded herself to be. It's so fascinating because it is the ultimate state of hypervigilant awareness of self while being so completely unaware of self. Everybody masks, whether you're autistic or not, right? Even code switching is a form of masking, right? One of the trippiest parts of the unmasking journey, however that is relevant to you, not in fact how it is going to be related to performativeness when it comes to operating and interacting with others in public. The process of positive disintegration that happens when you embark on a journey, for whatever reason, of unmasking to yourself by yourself. In a lot of ways is a fallacy in and of itself, because there is no real you. We are fluid, right? Masking is not just about how you outwardly perform in the world to get ahead, also how you internally perceive yourself, ideologies and facets of whatever personalities that you can amalgamate into this image of you to give you not only the permission, but the inspiration and the motivation to operate in the world. Now we're starting to talk about skill regression, but we'll save that for another video. For example, sometimes it's easier to get stuff done at home if you have like a little swirling Dunkin' Donuts coffee and you feel nice and collected and you can do all your little busy because you feel like that bitch, you know? You get in a car accident and gain lots of weight and also develop an allergy to gel nails. That has anything to do with your cognitive ability to still get all of this stuff done and be organized. In very subtle ways, how we feel about ourselves as identities affects what we think we're capable of, even subconsciously. One is that for Kim K to actually become a good actress, no amount of acting classes would actually be able to help her. What she would actually need is therapy. I don't mean therapy as in I think she needs help. Mean that because acting is literally emotional athleticism and vulnerability, ethics of emotional manipulation, even when it comes to acting coaches for younger people, is so blurry. That's why we're having these conversations about intimacy coaches, which is a fairly new thing in the industry. Could have used those on Broadway when we're dancing around in thongs and playing strippers and prostitutes in war-torn Vietnam, but we didn't have any. We didn't even have any other women on the creative team. Talk about good acting practices without also talking about mental health. Same reason why she wasn't good on Dancing with the Stars. It's the same reason you see videos of Kylie Jenner barely being able to dance, because that hypervigilance is so baked into who you are, and you can't blame them. I don't think people realize this, but one of the main things that you're doing when you go to school for acting is not actually learning how to be other people, it's learning how to undo all of the isms that make you yourself so you can return to a blank state of neutral. Only physically in how certain people walk, but also with how certain people speak. That's why certain actors are so easy to impersonate. They have really strong recognizable isms that they carry into every single character. Again, that's not to say that they're not talented. Great actors also can be very good at acting natural on camera. Not all people that are great at acting natural on camera are good actors. The thing is, one could argue that if you really think about it, Kim K doesn't even have that many isms that you really just think about when you think about her. Aside from her classic vocal fry and intonation of her voice, there's not really that much to impersonate about her. One with any sensitivity to body language whatsoever could be able to tell you that there's a frozenness to Kim, even with how she just holds herself. Not to say that we know who Kim K is or that we even care, but I see Kim Kardashian try to do anything in other types of medium, whether it be acting, whether it be Dancing with the Stars, whatever it is you name it. I find it so endlessly interesting because she's so bad at being anything other than herself, but she's also kind of bad at being herself. Not necessarily like there's no true identity there, like the center, middleist, last Russian doll. More so because she lives in such a meta world of hyper perception. That very identity of her most natural self has been programmed to be the most unnatural self. In a really weird way, and people misunderstand me when I say this, but Kim Kardashian has no true identity or personality, especially when it comes to the age of influencers and social perception. She is exactly what society and culture has made her become. She tries to appeal to the public by means of even cultural appropriation. As they get more popular and more attention from whomever, then they get more powerful. Both sides are creating each other. You say the public creates her, she affects the public affects her, she affects the public, and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Yes, of course, everyone in society to a certain extent does that on their own little scale. Emotional vulnerability is something that gets so much more difficult the older you get and the longer that you have refrained from displaying. That's why a lot of acting teachers can become really unethical and really detrimental to like the mental psyche of actors. We could also really start talking about method acting right now, but we won't. The point is that acting is an ultimate undoing of who you identify as, of who you are. If your very identity and idea of who you are is completely based on what other people think of you to such a degree, there's nowhere to start. There's nothing to unpack, except everything. I think that if Kim K were to actually do the required necessary work to become a great actress, it would be inevitable that she would experience skill regression and a breakdown of success in other areas of her life. Because again, this programmed idea of who we think we are, and sometimes that's very, very beneficial to us, is the system, is the template that makes things possible for us sometimes. Sure, as long as she's playing someone exactly like herself, like in American Horror Story to a certain extent, she might be good at that. But again, even then, she's playing an idea of herself, not being authentically natural herself. Playing the idea of yourself is still not the same thing as being yourself naturally. Anytime you see Kim Kardashian in any sort of interview when she's not on her own show, whether it be, technological events for her emojis or interviews for roasts or whatever it is, one of the most unrelaxed, unnatural energies that you could ever see. It doesn't mean that she's not stiffly composed. That doesn't mean that she doesn't move gracefully with everything completely thought out beforehand. It's a performativeness of being herself. Blake Lively is really good at just being herself, and we're seeing some of the uglier parts of that show up in interviews. But Kim Kardashian doesn't have a self to play, if that makes any sense. Performing is so meta and interesting, and that's why it's my main special interest. It's why I went on to perform on Broadway, because I've been obsessed with it my entire life and how it impacts things sociologically. It's so interesting how many people just think of being natural as being the same thing as being a good actor, when they're actually very opposite, if you were to really think about it. Because being a good actor, by the very definition, means doing things that feel so unnatural to make them look natural. We really wanted to overthink it. This is why I love this stuff. We could even argue how being an actor and playing characters could also start to go into some problematic areas where we are co-opting stories that are not ours to tell. But then where is that delineation between being a good enough actor to become a chameleon, but not a problematic chameleon to, you know what I mean? Like, it's very interesting. Should only trans people play trans roles? What about disabled people? How far down does that ableism route go? We always circle back to the really interesting question of, again, what is acting,